is Tokyo, once a city of 6 million people. What has happened here was caused by a force which, up until a few days ago, was entirely beyond the scope of man's imagination.
Hallo my friends, my fans, my amici, meine Freunde, DJ Nederfolk here. Tonight, right now, right here, we have a special thema-programma dedicated to the big and the magic Yukio Mishima. Yukio Mishima, a Japanese author, poet, playwright, actor, model, film director, imperialist, Shintoist, nationalist, and so much more. Why Yukio Mishima? First of all, Yukio Mishima is not his real name. His real name is Kimitake Hiraoka, for your information. Mishima again. Well, Mishima is a person after the Second World War in Japan who was, as I said just before, an artist, a mental thinker, who puts his thoughts in words, in books, play and movie and collaboration to a lot of things, how he was, how he felt, and how he was a part of Japanese society between the, let us say, transition of the old and the post-Second World War modern Japan. A conflict in itself, a conflict in himself, being so locked or turned to the old, but also a part of the modern. Very dramatical person and very interesting for us in the shadow and darkness world, because he touches the soul like we like to touch the soul, and that's why I'm gonna present to you tonight Yukio Mishima. For your information, I could talk days and days about this guy. You just go to Wikipedia and you just type Mishima or Yukio Mishima and read for yourself. Read some of his books, some of his plays, everything. For the film fans amongst us, there has been a super fantastic movie like 35 years ago. It's called Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. And if you know that the movie was also co-directed by people like George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola, you know that something special is on. Well, Yukio is indeed very, very special person. After this, we're gonna have like 60 minutes. It's a mix of interviews, known bands like Defin June, and more unknown things to you to discover. So I'm gonna keep it very short, and I leave the word to the magical Yukio himself.
Steve Martin signing off from Tokyo, Japan.
I don't think most of Japanese could agree to have nuclear weapons in Japan.
But do you think the public opposition decreases as time goes by? That people are now more willing to accept the idea of nuclear weapons than they would be, say, 10 years ago?
I'm quite pessimistic.
The man pessimistic because of anti-nuclear sentiment is Yukio Mishima, a highly popular novelist and extreme nationalist. He has formed his own army, and his comments show how the right wing has seized on the independence issue.
Just to be independent, and it doesn't mean the recovery of such a sort of imperialism anymore. We are Japanese. We like to be more independent. It is sort of common feeling all over Japanese population right now, because we already accomplished economic development. We like to we want to have something more, something spiritual.
How will you get that? I mean, you, for example, I believe, have formed what's called the Shield Society of student groups.
Yes.
What is your idea behind this?
My idea is I want to be pioneer of my idea of national guard, you see. It is just like soldiers in Switzerland, and we should have a civilian life in the peaceful time. And if emergency would happen, we must hold the gun.
Do you think that as the Americans withdraw their forces from the Pacific, this will increase the dangers of a left-wing takeover in Japan?
In some extent, I should think so. And because United States is sometimes quite ignorant about Asian policy. And when we had the Manchurian War at 1930s, they just disturbed our war, and they never considered we were the most active anti-communist country, you see.
Well, what is your answer? What should Japan be doing now, specifically in matters of military?
A military matter, I have some very individual opinion about it. Is to divide the self-defense force in two parts. The one part should be the National Guard, armed by the conventional weapons, and on the other hand, some percentage of Air Force of self-defense forces should be belong to the United Nations police troop as a reserve. And when the constitution could be changed, this reserve army could join the United Nations police army, and it could be armed by nuclear weapons.
The body of humanity has been poisoned, and even as it strives for new horizons and constant advancement, rigor mortis has preceded the approach of death, and the lives of men are dragged into the grave along with it. Seek now those motions which sow for humanity the seeds of death, as they harvest for you the bounty of life.
Just close your eyes and then remember the thoughts you've locked away. When tomorrow comes, your wish you had today. And as we sit here alone, looking for a reason to go on, it's so clear that all we have now are our thoughts of yesterday. If you're still there when it's all over, I'm scared I'll have to say that a part of you has gone since yesterday. And as we sit here alone, looking for a reason to go on, it's so clear that all we have now are our thoughts of yesterday. La la la. La la la, 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 la la. Or maybe this could be the ending, with nothing left of you. 100 wishes couldn't say, I don't want to. And as we sit here alone, looking for a reason to go on, it's so clear that all we have now are our thoughts of yesterday. La la la, 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 la la la.
DJ Nederfolk Yukio Mishima special Mishima memory on Nederfolk.com, on Radio Darkitalia, on Radio WFKU, on Radio Darkoid, on podcast Radio Rapaille en podcast Nederfolk.com. Mishima Memory, on Nederfolk.com, on Radio Darkitalia, on Radio Wave KU, on Radio Darkoid, on podcast Radio Rapaille en podcast Nederfolk.com.
so lichtet unser Beeren. Und wir rufen unsere Götter als ein Zeichen fürs Bestehen. Und wir rufen unsere Götter
Mishima himself had samurai ancestry, and he was extremely proud of it.
You can easily find two contradictional characteristics of Japanese cultures or Japanese characters. One is elegance, one is brutality. But these two characteristics are very tightly combined sometimes, and our brutality, I think, comes from our emotion. It is never mechanized or systematized like Nazi's brutality. And I think the brutality might come from our feminine aspect, and elegance comes from our nervous side. Sometimes we are too sensitive of our definement or elegance or sense of beauty of such aesthetic side. And sometimes we are tired of it, and we need sometimes sudden explosion to make us free from it. And for instance, after the war, our brutal side was completely hidden. But I believe it is just hidden, I think. And I don't like the Japanese culture is represented only by the flower arrangement or such a sort of peace-loving culture. We still have a very strong warrior's mind in our... I particularly liked kendo from the sense of beauty, but gradually I found out the traditional value of the kendo, and it used to be close to the duel, death fighting, and all kendo player wanted to get real experience of the border of death and life, you know. And in the samurai tradition, the sense of beauty was always connected with death. And for instance, if you commit harakiri, the samurai was requested to make up his face by powder or lipsticks in order to keep his face beautiful after his such a suffering death. Economical prosperity gives some bored feeling already, and it gave a big, huge spiritual vacuum and unbearable boredom, particularly among intellectuals. But I think not only intellectual, but also among younger generations and half of populace, I think. And at the present situation, we are never satisfied, we are never contented. And we cannot believe such an economic prosperity. What it means. And we had the, long tradition of samurai. They lived for the honor and the spirit, and they despised and looked down any money.
Inspired by the No theatre, Mishima wrote his own No plays. This is one of them. But he transferred the action from the 12th century to a modern setting.
I found out it is quite impossible to transfer the old stylized beauty of the play, and I cut it off. I just picked up only the theme. For instance, in My Lady Aoi, the original play takes place in some court life in the 12th century, and I moved it into the modern hospital in 20th century.
Mishima's interest in the theatre began with the popular form, kabuki. As a child, he'd often been taken to kabuki by his grandmother. Now he began to work with kabuki actors, writing his own adaptations for their theatre.
Kabuki was developed among populace, and it was considered quite a baroque, quite a bizarre place. And samurai was not permitted to go to kabuki theatre because it was considered quite a vulgar place. But in such a way, kabuki developed itself in a remarkable way. It has a lot of baroque characteristics, mixing up of tragic side and the humorous side. At the beginning, kabuki was acted by women. It's called a famous woman dancer called Izumo Okuni. But the Tokugawa government was very Confucianistic, and they prohibited the women on the theater because the actress was suspected as a sort of prostitute. And then kabuki used the boys as a woman's part. But boys are also used as for the male prostitution. And the Tokugawa government prohibited it again. And then the kabuki actors had to find their own way to act a female part, even by adult actors, which made a improvement in the technical acting of a female role. And it started around the 18th century, and through the 200 years, they developed a marvelous technique to express female parts by man actors. I particularly picked up the student from the university where the conflict or trouble happened. And such a minority of students who cannot be involved into the leftist movement felt very isolated and very separated. And so they believed in some sense, they believed their own Japan and Japanese spirit, but it was completely denied by the leftist student movement. Spiritually, I wanted to revive some samurai spirit through it, because I don't want to revive harakiri itself, but through the vision of such a very strong vision of harakiri, I wanted to inspire and stimulate younger people. And through such a stimulation, I wanted to revive some old traditional sense of honor, or sense of very strong responsibility, and such a sense of death in honor. That's my purpose. Such a way of very extreme eroticism and such a bloody eroticism is, maybe it was born in my mind from my birth. On the other hand, I don't want to show it as a private confession or something like that. I want to combine it with the most public situation. The harakiri is a very positive, very proud way of death. I think it is very different from the Western concept of suicide. Western concept of suicide is always defeat itself, mostly. But harakiri sometimes makes you win.
担当にかけた名誉
Thank you.
からの人生の旅路、数少ない真の友、真実ならばぶちのめしたいお前の敵、幻に見た花盛り、高面絶叫と没落、葉が触れ
DJ Nederfolk's Yukio Mishima special Mishima Memory on Nederfolk.com, on Radio Darkitalia, on Radio Way of KU, on Radio Darkoid, on podcast Radio Rapaya en podcast Nederfolk.com. So my friends, Yukio Mishima, in sound and music, and by his own words, this very controversial, maybe not, but kind of magical person in our modern society. Certainly for you, somebody to discover. Again, Wikipedia, very good start. Mishima, a lot of information. I'm gonna leave you and I say to you, until the next program, one of the mine, one of the fellow DJs of Darkitalia, so enjoy it and rendezvous next time again. Bye bye. So, I am DJ Nederfolk. I'm a DJ, I'm a web radio DJ here on Radio Darkitalia. Listen to my program now, you can listen later on our Mixcloud pages of Darkitalia. my programs and the programs of all my fellow quality DJs available all for you. All in shadow and darkness.
Through such a stimulation, I wanted to revive some old traditional sense of honor, or sense of very strong responsibility, and such a sense of death in honor.
I don't think most of Japanese could agree to have nuclear weapons in Japan.
Reducing public opposition decreases as time goes by. People are now more willing to accept the idea of nuclear weapons than they would be, say, 10 years ago.
I'm quite pessimistic.
The man pessimistic because of anti-nuclear sentiment is Yukio Mishima, a highly popular novelist and extreme nationalist. He has formed his own army, and his comments show how the right wing has seized on the independence issue.
Just to be independent, and it doesn't mean become such a sort of imperialism anymore. We are Japanese, we like to flowers whistling purity all over the cleansing to the breath, the concept of to have something more, the something spiritual, the soul. Just like soldiers in Switzerland, and we should have a civilian life in the peaceful time. And if emergency would happen, we must hold the gun.
Do you think that as the Americans withdraw their forces from the Pacific, this will increase the dangers of a left-wing takeover?
This is death in honor.
To some extent, I should think so. Because Japan, United States is sometimes quite ignorant about its policy. And when they had the material law, I decided just this time,
Fragments.
they never considered we were the most active and the communist countries.
What is your sense of what should Japan do now? Specifically in matters of military.
And that's a matter I have some very opinion about it. Is to divide the defense force into parts. One that should be the national unit by the conventional governments. And on the other hand, some percentage of the air force forces should be belong to the United Nations police troop as a reserve. And when the constitution could be changed, this reserve army could join the United Nations police army, and it could be armed by nuclear weapons.